Hello, my name is John Unwin. There's nothing remarkable or special about me. I'm just an ordinary chap doing an ordinary job at the mill. But I did keep a diary for several years. And using this, I would like to give you a glimpse into my life in the year 1897. Now, 1897 was the year of the Diamond Jubilee of our great Queen Victoria, whose name and that of Albert is commemorated in several ways around the village. I was born in May 1866. My father and mother, William and Charlotte, were married in Saltaire, but they did move around a bit. I was born in Esholt, but christened in Saltaire, and we lived in Baildon. In 1871, the year my father died, when I was about 5 years old, that's my mother and two brothers, moved to Caroline Street. And whilst there, I finished my education whilst working as a mill hand at Salts. I was quite young at the time, but my brother Joshua, who also worked at the mill, was even younger. We had a widowed mother to keep after all. My elder brother Robert emigrated to America, whilst Mum, me and Joshua moved to 9 Fanny Street. Josh went off to work at Salts in America, and I was left to take care of Mum until she died in 1894. I married Louise the following year. She was a Baildon girl too, and we moved a few doors down to 20 Fanny Street. We weren't blessed with children, so Louise's sister came to live with us. 1897 arrived, which turned out to be an eventful year apart from the Diamond Jubilee. I had been a member of the Odd Fellows for some years, being a Grand Master of the lodge previously, and in January I was elected to the position of Secretary. Now that entailed a lot of work, including handling cash and organising the meetings, which were often held at the Odd Fellows Hall on Otley Road and at other hostelries in the town. It's a good job that I paid attention to my learning at school, but I also read up on bookkeeping and accounting in books from the library. If you have a look in my diary, you may find that I did a good job, although the writing is necessarily small due to its size. That's the size of the diary there. As you can see, in relation to the device where you now keep track of things these days, it was incredibly small. Now, work at the mill was sometimes very arduous. As a yarn packer, I was pushing a metal buggy full of raw wool or yarn all day. Well, it seemed like that at times. For this, I was paid on average 23 shillings a week, usually receiving it on Wednesdays. I would give Louise 20 shillings, and the remainder would be used by me for odds and ends, like getting a haircut and shave, or having my boots mended. With all the use they were put to, that came round fairly often. Of course, when you didn't work, you didn't get paid. And for 5 weeks or so during the summer, I was off work due to my arthritic problems. During this time, I did receive about 40 shillings in sick pay, not from Salts, but from the Odd Fellows and Union sickness schemes that the more prudent contributed to. During the month of August, I had just 27 shillings and a penny in pay and 40 shillings sick pay. That's after I was declared on sick funds. The cost of seeing the doctor, now a free service at the time, and buying medicines took all of this and more. St. Jacob's oil for the rheumatics cost a bob a bottle, and I got through 5 of them that month. I would work extra hours for which I was paid to make up for the shortfall and save for the next rainy day. And the Oddfellows secretary payment also helped in this respect. I received 30 shillings twice a year for that, as it did take up a lot of my spare time with correspondence and organising the meeting and such like. But it wasn't all work. There was plenty of time for leisure, which was mostly walking in the countryside on wood, up on Moorhead, or over the river to Baildon, Milner Field, and Shipley Glen, using the new tramway there at times. The Diamond Jubilee saw us going to Manningham Lane to watch the procession, and we walked round that evening to see all the fires and the beacons. The next day, we took a tram to Bradford to see the illuminations there. In early August, we went away for a few days' holiday to my cousin Ted in the northeast. On 31st of July, we took the train from Saltaire to Darlington. The fares were 13 shillings in all. We visited Stockton and Middlesbrough to see the Electric Light Palace on the backs. We came on Tuesday after a nice river trip. It was on my return that I consulted Dr. Emerson, and the following week began my time off work. I still managed to walk most days, often with the dog, which kept my spirits up. Did you know that a dog license was 7 and 6 in those days, and the price never changed until it was abolished? Now, we would sometimes go out in the evenings for concerts, recitals, and sometimes play by the Brescian family, often at the Memorial Hall. Entry was sixpence each, and a penny for the programme. One time in particular, I remember, was the Odd Fellows District Anniversary Dinner and Dance. A proper knife and fork meal was provided, and afterwards we danced until midnight. I would also attend meetings of the Shipley Textile Society and also the local co-op with Louise, who was a shareholder. And we would also watch Saltaire play cricket on Saturdays in the summer, something we both enjoyed. Later on in life, I would become the honorary treasurer of the Wind Hill Cricket Club after we moved there. Life was often good, and we had a trip just before Christmas to Skipton, where I bought Christmas presents for Louise and her sister. Gloves and slippers for both of them. I received an 1898 diary, of course. We always took in boarders, which helped to make ends meet. And when Louise was away in Manchester for the co-op for 2 weeks, I would tip up the housekeeping to her sister, who lived with us. After we moved to number 3 Baker Street, we had a young man, Percy Blackburn, as a boarder. And later on, Louise's sister and her husband lodged with us. Now that was shortly before my demise in 1916, after a long illness. Thank you for listening. And if you get the chance, have a look at the transcript of my diary, where you'll find many other interesting details.